Why does snow always fall during the worst moments of your life? Lieutenant Kira Thorne knelt in the middle of a cracked concrete courtyard, hands bound behind her back, blood seeping through white powder beneath her knees. The abandoned forward operating base looked like something pulled from a nightmare. Steel gates, crumbling walls, wind that cut through skin like razors. The commander who stood above her bent down, gripped her chin with brutal fingers, smiled with the kind of contempt that only comes from decades of making people break. "Kneel before me," he said in accented English. His breath was visible in the freezing air, steam rising from cruelty. They didn't know her name, didn't know the number of times she'd pulled a trigger exceeded the steps they'd walked in their entire lives, didn't know that the woman kneeling before them had already decided this wasn't how her story ended. When the steel gate closed behind them, they thought the game had ended. Actually, the hunt had just begun. But to understand why Kira Thorne knelt in that snow, why her eyes held something colder than the winter air around her, you have to go back 25 years, to a moment that carved her soul into something unbreakable. Fort Benning, Georgia, 1999. 4-year-old Kira sat on a worn couch, feet dangling above the floor, watching television flicker with breaking news. Her mother's hand covered her mouth, trembling. Her father stood frozen in the doorway, still wearing his duty uniform after 23 years of service. On the screen, a grainy video played, recorded on a handheld camera by Serbian militants who wanted the world to see their defiance. 7 American soldiers captured during a peacekeeping patrol that had ventured too far into hostile territory. 6 men, 1 woman. Lieutenant Maya Thorne, age 19. Kira's sister. The militants made them kneel in a line, a muddy field somewhere in Serbian-controlled zones. The camera shook slightly as the man holding it moved closer to get better footage. The leader of the militant group walked down the line of kneeling soldiers, his face partially obscured by a balaclava. He stopped at Maya, the youngest, the only woman. "Beg," he said in heavily accented English, "beg for your American life." Maya Thorne looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were the color of winter storms, gray, blue, unwavering. Even at 19, even with a rifle pointed at the base of her skull, she held her spine straight. "Never," she said clearly. Her voice carried across the muddy field, across the digital recording, across the Atlantic Ocean, and into a small living room in Georgia where her baby sister watched. The shot rang out. Kira's mother screamed. Her father didn't make a sound. He just stood there in the doorway, his face carved from granite, watching his oldest daughter die on international television. But Kira didn't look away. She watched Maya's eyes in that final moment, watched how her sister never closed them, never flinched, never gave them the satisfaction of fear. "Never kneel, Kira," Maya had told her the last time she'd been home on leave, picking her up and spinning her around in the front yard. "Stand tall, always stand tall." The television showed the aftermath now. News anchors with solemn faces, Pentagon spokespeople promising investigations, international condemnations. The militant leader's name appeared on screen. Colonel Alexei Vyulov, former Soviet GRU intelligence officer, now commanding Serb irregular forces in Kosovo. Kira's father turned off the television. The room fell into silence so complete it hurt. But in that silence, in that moment, something hardened in 4-year-old Kira Thorne's chest. Not hate, not yet. Something colder, more patient. Purpose. Most children that age would have forgotten, would have moved on, would have let the trauma fade into distant memory. Kira wasn't most children. She attended Maya's funeral 3 weeks later, stood at the graveside in a black dress that was too big for her, watched soldiers fold a flag with mechanical precision. The bugler played taps, adults cried, her father stood like stone. And Kira made a promise to a white headstone. "I'll stand for you, Maya, like you taught me." The years that followed weren't about revenge. They were about preparation. At 7, she asked her father to teach her to shoot. He took her to the range, showed her how to hold a rifle, how to breathe, how to squeeze instead of pull. She was a natural, not because of talent, because of focus. At 10, she memorized maps of Kosovo, studied Serbian geography, language, military tactics. Her teachers thought she was gifted. They didn't understand she was hunting. At 14, she ran 6 miles every morning before school, built endurance, built strength, built the body of someone who understood that preparation meant survival. At 17, she enlisted. Her father tried to stop her. Her mother begged. But Kira had made her choice 25 years before she was old enough to understand what choice meant. Boot camp was easy. Not because the training was soft, because she'd already been training her entire life. Advanced marksmanship school, top of her class. Instructors noticed, pulled her aside, asked if she'd considered special operations. She had. Sniper school, where most candidates washed out within the first week. Kira thrived. Not because she was fearless, because she'd already faced the worst fear of her life at age 4. Everything else was just noise. Her instructors saw something in her, a coldness, a patience, the ability to lie motionless for hours, days if necessary, waiting for a single perfect shot. "What drives you, Thorn?" one instructor asked after she'd set a school record for long-range accuracy. She looked at him, didn't answer. "Some things you don't explain, you just carry them." By 25, she deployed 6 times. Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, places the military wouldn't confirm, missions that never made official records. Each deployment carved away more of the girl who'd sat on that couch in Georgia. Each confirmed kill was documented. Date, time, range, conditions, target description. Not because regulations demanded it, because Maya would have wanted accountability. She became known as Ghost. No call sign anyone used regularly. No name on duty rosters anyone bothered to remember. Just results. Just targets that disappeared. Just silence where enemies used to stand. And through it all, one name stayed on her personal list. Colonel Alexei Vyulov. War criminal. Murderer. The man who'd executed her sister on camera and walked free because international law had loopholes and political complications, and 1,000 reasons why justice never quite arrived. Kira didn't believe in complications. She believed in accountability. What happens when you put one woman on a mountain and tell her to keep 282 men alive? Rocky Mountains, Colorado, present day. Forward Operating Base Sentinel sat like a frozen fortress 8,000 feet above sea level, 300 miles from any serviceable airfield, 600 from any city worth nomming on a tactical map. The base held 282 Navy SEALs, 3 platoons, support staff, intelligence personnel, medics, communications specialists, all pinned down by weather that felt less like nature and more like a tactical weapon deployed by an enemy that understood patience. Captain Derek Holloway stood in the command center, watching snow accumulate against reinforced windows. 2 inches per hour. Had been for the past 18 hours straight. The wind screamed across exposed ridgelines, carrying temperatures down to -8 Fahrenheit before accounting for wind chill. "UAVs down," his communications officer reported from her station, not looking up from the dead screen. "Lost signal 7 minutes ago." Holloway nodded, expected. The drone had been their last eye in the sky. Before that, satellite coverage had degraded to nothing through the storm. Before that, the resupply convoy had turned back at the valley entrance, the driver radioing something about whiteout conditions, and a road that no longer existed beneath 3 feet of fresh powder. "Perimeter check," Holloway asked. "All stations reporting," the officer said, "but thermals are getting sketchy, too much interference from the storm." On the northern ridge, 2 miles out from the main base perimeter, She watched through her scope. No call sign that anyone used regularly. No name on the duty roster that anyone bothered to remember. The SEALs called her Ghost when they called her anything at all. Most of the time they didn't. She'd arrived 3 weeks ago, attached from some unit that no one had clearance to ask about. Carried a custom rifle that made the quartermasters nervous when they saw the modifications. An accuracy International AXMC chambered in .338 Lapua Magnum. Optics worth more than most soldiers made in 6 months. She'd set up on the high ground and hadn't come down since. The men knew 4 things about her. She arrived, she fired, enemies disappeared, she never missed. Lieutenant Kira Thorne sat in a position that should have given her hypothermia after the first 6 hours. After 3 weeks, it should have killed her. But she'd prepared. 5 separate positions scattered across a half-mile of ridgeline, each one reinforced, insulated, camouflaged. Each one stocked with ammunition cached in waterproof containers buried under rocks. Each one offering overlapping fields of fire across 3 different valley approaches. She'd done it all herself. No help requested, no help offered. The SEALs had learned quickly that Ghost worked alone. Her scope swept across the northern valley. Visibility was garbage, maybe 200 meters on a good minute between gusts. The wind played hell with bullet trajectory at range. She'd already compensated for it 43 times over the past 3 weeks. 43 confirmed kills. All recorded in the log she kept in a waterproof notebook buried at her primary position. Date, time, range, conditions, target description. Every shot documented with the mechanical precision of someone who understood that in this profession, accountability wasn't optional. Through the scope movement. She tracked it, 4 figures low crawl using a creek bed for concealment, good discipline, weapons ready, communications equipment visible on their backs. Forward reconnaissance element. Professionals. She let them advance, watched their patterns, noted the hand signals they used, the way the team leader kept checking a GPS unit. They were mapping approach routes, identifying weak points in the base's defensive perimeter, the kind of detailed reconnaissance that came before something larger. At 14:30 hours they stopped, huddled together for a consultation. The team leader made a radio call. She watched his lips move through the scope, couldn't hear the words but read the tension in his shoulders. He just confirmed the base's exact position to whoever was coordinating this operation. She breathed out slowly, squeezed the trigger. The team leader dropped. His teammates reacted fast, scattered, seeking whatever cover the creek bed offered, professional responses, well-trained. She worked left to right, breathing between shots, no rush. Each target acquired through the scope confirmed engaged. 4 rounds. 4 bodies in the snow. The wind howled, already beginning to cover them with fresh powder. In the command center, Holloway's radio crackled with static. "TOC, this is Hotel 3. We just heard rifle fire from the northern sector. Confirm source." Holloway looked at his communications officer. She was already pulling up the sector map, overlaying known friendly positions with color-coded markers. "Ghost is up there," she said quietly. Holloway picked up the radio. "Hotel 3, that's friendly fire. Ghost has the northern sector. Stand down." "Copy that, TOC. What's she shooting at?" "Good question." Holloway switched frequencies. "Ghost, this is Sentinel Actual. Report." Static for 3 seconds. Then her voice, calm, measured, like she was reporting the weather. "Sentinel Actual, Ghost. Engaged 4 hostiles conducting reconnaissance of our northern perimeter. All targets down. Recommend increased alert status. This wasn't random patrol. They were mapping us." Holloway felt ice form in his stomach that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Copy, Ghost. Continue observation. Report any further contact." "Wilco." The line went dead. Holloway turned to his operations officer. "What do we have on hostile activity in this sector?" The officer pulled up intelligence reports. "Nothing confirmed in the past 72 hours. Weather's been too bad for their operations, same as ours." "Then, what were 4 armed professionals doing 2 miles from our perimeter?" No one had an answer. But Kira, alone on that ridge, already knew. The reconnaissance team hadn't been random. The equipment they carried, the way they moved, the coordination, everything pointed to something bigger. And the radio call the team leader had made before she'd put him down meant someone now knew exactly where forward operating base Sentinel sat. Someone who'd sent trained soldiers through a blizzard to confirm a target. She shifted position, moved to her secondary hide. Always move after firing. Basic sniper doctrine. But more than that, instinct honed over 6 deployments and more confirmed kills than she cared to count. The wind shifted, carried sound across the valley. Engines. Diesel, multiple vehicles. Moving slow through deep snow, but moving. She glassed the valley floor. Nothing yet. But the sound was there, unmistakable, getting closer. Sentinel actual ghost, I have engine noise, multiple vehicles. Northeastern approach. Can't get visual yet through the storm, but they're coming. Holloway's voice came back tight. "Copy, stand by." She didn't stand by. She prepared. Moved to position 3. The one with the best sightlines down the northeastern valley. Checked her ammunition. 4 magazines. 120 rounds total. Started doing math in her head. How many vehicles? How many soldiers per vehicle? How many shots would she get before they pinpointed her position and returned fire? The engines grew louder. Then through a gap in the snow, she saw them. 6 vehicles, modified trucks, heavy weapons mounted on the beds, each one carrying at least 8 soldiers. 48 hostiles. Minimum. She called it in, voice still calm, but Holloway would hear what she wasn't saying. Sentinel actual, visual confirmed. 6 vehicles, heavy weapons, approximately 50 hostiles. They're forming up at the valley entrance. This isn't reconnaissance. This is assault. Silence on the radio. Then Ghost, fall back to base. We're initiating lockdown protocols. She looked through her scope at the force gathering below. Looked back toward the base, 2 miles behind her through a blizzard. Looked at the notebook, where 43 names were written. Negative, Sentinel actual. If they reach the base, you're overrun. I can slow them here. Lieutenant Thorne, that's a direct order. Fall back now. She smiled. First time Holloway had used her actual name. With respect, sir, someone needs to be up here, and I'm already in position. She switched off the radio before he could respond. Because sometimes orders conflict with necessity. And necessity was watching 50 armed soldiers prepare to kill 282 men who were trapped in a fortress that wasn't designed for the kind of assault these professionals were planning. The lead vehicle started moving. Kira adjusted her scope, compensated for wind, calculated range, accounted for bullet drop over extreme distance. Exhaled slowly, and reminded herself why she'd spent 25 years preparing for impossible moments. Because Maya had stood when standing meant death. And Kira would do the same. The first shot rang out across the valley. The hunt had begun. How many enemies can one person stop before mathematics catches up? The lead vehicle's driver slumped forward. The truck swerved, buried itself in a snowbank. Soldiers scrambled out, seeking cover, scanning ridgelines for the shooter they couldn't see. Kira was already moving. Position 3 to position 4. 30 seconds. Through snow that should have been impossible to navigate, but she'd practiced this route 100 times. Second shot. The heavy gunner on truck 2. He'd been swinging his weapon toward where he thought the first shot came from. Now he was falling backward, the .50 caliber machine gun firing wild into empty air. Chaos in the valley. Good. Chaos meant confusion. Confusion meant mistakes. Mistakes meant opportunities. She counted to 10. Let them think the shooting had stopped. Let them think maybe it was just 2 lucky shots. Let their training fight against their fear. Then she started working systematically. 3rd shot, 4th shot, 5th shot. 3 more soldiers down. They scattered like she knew they would, abandoned the vehicles, sought whatever cover the valley offered. Boulders, trees, creek beds. Basic infantry doctrine when under sniper fire. But basic doctrine didn't account for someone who'd spent 3 weeks building overlapping fields of fire across every inch of this valley. She moved again, position 4 to position 1, the long route, through terrain that would kill anyone who didn't know exactly where to step, but she knew. She'd memorized every rock, every drift, every safe path. At position 1, she settled in, let her breathing steady, scanned the valley below. They were regrouping, 43 soldiers now, 5 already down. Their commander was rallying them. She could see him through the scope, tall, confident, pointing toward the ridgeline, organizing a counter-assault. Smart, but not smart enough. She waited, patient, let him gather his forces, let him give them courage, let him make them think they could win this. Then she shot him. The commander dropped, and the valley erupted. Return fire now, hundreds of rounds, thousands maybe, all aimed at ridgelines they couldn't see through the storm, all hitting snow and rock and empty positions she'd abandoned minutes ago. She waited for the barrage to end. Ammunition wasn't infinite. Even professional soldiers had to reload. When the firing slowed, she went back to work. 6th shot, 7th, 8th. 3 more down. They tried rushing her position. 5 soldiers, moving fast, using cover, good tactics, but she'd anticipated this. Position 1 had a perfect angle on the approach route they'd chosen. 9th shot, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. All 5 down. The mathematics were simple. 48 soldiers minus 18 left 30. But mathematics didn't account for determination, for training, for the kind of professionals who didn't break even when a ghost in the mountains was killing them one by one. They adapted, split into 3 groups, started advancing on her positions from different angles, suppressive fire, coordinated movement, the kind of assault tactics that required discipline and leadership. Someone down there had taken command, someone good. Kira shifted to position 2, checked her ammunition, 60 rounds left. 30 targets. She'd need every round to count. The first group reached her previous position, position 4. They cleared it methodically, found nothing, radioed the others. Good, let them think she was running. The second group pushed forward, overconfident now, moving faster than they should. 14th shot, 15th, 16th. 3 more down. 27 left. The third group went to ground, smart. They'd learned. But going to ground in a blizzard meant hypothermia, meant waiting, meant giving her time. And time was all she needed. She worked the valley for the next hour. Patient shots, calculated risks, never staying in one position long enough for them to pinpoint her location, never taking shots she wasn't certain of. By the time the sun started setting, 37 soldiers lay in the snow. 11 remained. And they'd stopped advancing. They huddled now, around their vehicles, trying to stay warm, trying to figure out what to do about a sniper they couldn't find, couldn't kill, couldn't stop. Kira watched them through her scope, saw the fear, saw the exhaustion, saw men who'd come to assault a base and instead found themselves hunted by something they didn't understand. She could have killed them all, had the ammunition, had the position, had the skill. But something stopped her. These men weren't Vyulov, weren't the people who'd killed Maya. They were soldiers following orders, same as her. She called Holloway. Sentinel actual ghost. Enemy force has broken. 11 survivors. They're no longer combat effective. Recommend you send a team to secure them." Holloway's voice came back disbelieving. "Ghost, confirm. You engaged 48 hostiles and reduced them to 11. Confirmed, 37 enemy KIA, 11 surrendered." Silence on the radio. "Then outstanding work, Lieutenant. We're sending a team now. You should come in. You've been out there for 3 weeks." She looked at her positions, at the valleys she defended, at the notebook with 37 new entries. 80 confirmed kills total now. Maya would be proud. "Copy that, sir, coming in." She stood, felt her legs protest, felt cold she'd been ignoring for weeks, felt exhaustion that went bone deep. But she'd done it. 282 men were alive because she'd stood between them and an enemy force that should have overrun the base. She started the long walk back, 2 miles through a blizzard, through terrain that wanted to kill her. But she'd walked through worse. She'd walked through 25 years of preparation for a moment like this. And when she finally reached the base gates, saw the SEALs staring at her like she was something supernatural, she just nodded. "Perimeter secure," she said. Then she collapsed. What does it take to break someone who's already been broken? Kira woke in the base medical facility, warm for the first time in weeks, IV in her arm, monitors beeping, a medic checking her vitals. "Welcome back, Lieutenant," the medic said. "You gave us a scare." How long? Her voice was rough, throat dry. 18 hours, severe dehydration, stage 2 hypothermia, multiple injuries we're still cataloging, but you're alive. She sat up, pain everywhere, ribs, feet, shoulders, places she'd been ignoring because the mission demanded it. "The prisoners." "Secured. Captain Holloway's been interrogating them. Apparently they're part of something bigger, a lot bigger." Kira didn't like the sound of that. The door opened. Holloway entered, face grim. "Lieutenant Thorne, glad to see you conscious. We need to talk." He pulled up a chair, sat heavily. "The soldiers you captured, they're not local militia. They're former Spetsnaz, Russian special forces, and they weren't here by accident." Kira felt something cold settle in her chest. "Who sent them?" "That's the question." One of the prisoners finally talked, said their commander was someone with a personal interest in this base, someone who wanted to send a message. Holloway pulled out a photograph, showed it to her. Colonel Alexei Vyulov. Older now, grayer, but those eyes were the same eyes that had looked into a camera 25 years ago and pulled a trigger. "This means something to you?" Holloway asked. Kira stared at the photograph, at the man who'd killed Maya, at the war criminal who'd walked free for 2 decades. "Yeah," she said quietly, "it means everything." She told Holloway, all of it. Maya, Kosovo, the promise she'd made at age 4, the 25 years of preparation, why she'd really volunteered for this assignment when intelligence suggested Vyulov might be operating in this sector. Holloway listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "So this whole time you weren't just defending the base, you were hunting him." "I was doing both." "And the 80 confirmed kills?" "Necessary." Holloway studied her. "You know what's going to happen now, right? Vyulov knows you're here, knows you killed his assault force. He's going to come for you personally." "I'm counting on it." "Lieutenant, this isn't a vendetta mission. We have protocols, rules of engagement. If Vyulov is in this sector, we'll coordinate with command, launch a proper operation, bring him in the right way." Kira met his eyes. "With respect, sir, the right way hasn't worked for 25 years. Maya deserves better than protocol." "Maya's gone, Lieutenant, and throwing your life away won't bring her back." "I'm not throwing it away. I'm finishing what she started." Before Holloway could respond, the alarm sounded. Red lights, sirens, the communications officer's voice over the intercom. All personnel to defensive positions. We have incoming hostiles, multiple assault teams. This is not a drill. Holloway ran to the command center. Kira followed, ignoring the medic's protests, ignoring the pain, ignoring everything except the certainty that this was it. Vyulov was coming. The command center was chaos, officers shouting, maps lighting up with hostile contacts, 3 separate assault forces, 50 soldiers each, converging on the base from different directions. 150 enemies against 282 defenders. But the defenders were trapped inside walls, and the attackers had mobility, surprise, overwhelming firepower. "Where's our air support?" Holloway demanded. "Still grounded by weather. Earliest ETA is 4 hours. 4 hours we don't have. What about reinforcements?" "Same problem. No one can get through this storm." Holloway looked at the map, at the tactical situation that was rapidly deteriorating, at odds that weren't in their favor. Then he looked at Kira. "You stopped 48. Think you can do it again?" She was already moving toward the armory. "Give me 2 magazines and a clear sightline." But this time was different. This time, Vyulov was ready for her. She took position on the eastern wall, started engaging the nearest assault force. First shot, second shot, third shot. Then return fire, accurate, coordinated. They'd pinpointed her position instantly. She moved, but they were ready for that too. Suppressive fire followed her, knew her patterns, knew her tactics. Vyulov had studied her, learned from the failures of his first assault, adapted. She killed 6 more, but it cost her. Shrapnel from a near-miss grenade, bullet graze across her shoulder, blood mixing with snow. The base defenses were holding, barely. SEALs fought from prepared positions, but ammunition was running low, casualties mounting. And then the northern gate exploded. Breaching charge, professional placement, the gate collapsed. Enemies poured through. Kira ran, repositioned, started engaging the breach force, killed 4, 5, 6. But there were too many. She saw Holloway directing a counterattack, saw SEALs fighting room to room, saw the base being overrun despite everything they'd done. Then she saw him. Vyulov, standing in the courtyard, surrounded by his personal guard, watching the battle like a conductor watching an orchestra. Their eyes met across the chaos. He smiled, and Kira made a choice. She abandoned her position, ran toward him, through enemy fire, through explosions, through a battlefield that wanted her dead. Killed his guards, 1, 2, 3, 4. Reached him. He was faster than she expected for a man his age, blocked her attack, countered, caught her with a kick that sent her sprawling. She got up, attacked again. They fought in the snow, hand to hand. No honor, no rules, just 2 people who'd been preparing for this moment their entire lives. She landed hits, so did he, blood on both sides, exhaustion making them sloppy. But he had backup. His remaining soldiers surrounded them, weapons aimed at her. "Enough," Vyulov said. Kira stood in the center of the circle, bleeding, outnumbered, out of options. "Drop your weapon." She looked at him, at the man who'd killed Maya, at the man who'd haunted 25 years of her life. And she dropped her sidearm. They bound her hands, forced her to her knees. In the exact position Maya had been in that muddy field, 25 years ago. Vyulov walked a circle around her, savoring the moment. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "Yeah," Kira said. "You're the man who killed my sister." He stopped, looked at her more closely. "Maya Thorne, Kosovo, I remember her. She had eyes like yours, defiant even at the end. She taught me well. Apparently not well enough. You're kneeling same as her." Kira looked up at him. "There's a difference. She didn't have a choice. I do." "Is that right? And what choice do you have exactly?" "The choice to keep standing, even on my knees. Vyulov laughed, poetic but useless. You've lost, Lieutenant, your base is falling, your men are dying, and you're about to join your sister. He drew his pistol, pressed it against her forehead. Same position, same angle, same execution Maya had faced. Any last words? Kira looked past him, saw the battle still raging, saw SEALs fighting, saw 282 men who hadn't given up despite impossible odds. Saw that she'd bought them time, 4 hours, long enough for reinforcements, long enough for air support, long enough for Maya's sacrifice to mean something. Yeah, she said, never kneel. Vyulov's finger tightened on the trigger, and the sky opened up. Sometimes salvation arrives when you've already accepted death. Apache helicopters, 3 of them, cutting through the storm like vengeful angels. Their miniguns opened up, 30mm cannons raining fire on Vyulov's forces. The soldiers around Kira scattered, sought cover, returned fire uselessly against aircraft designed to withstand worse. Vyulov hesitated, looked at her, looked at the helicopters, calculated odds. This isn't over, he said. Then he ran. His personal guard followed, retreating toward vehicles they'd kept at the perimeter, professional withdrawal under covering fire. Kira stayed kneeling, hands still bound, watching them go. A SEAL reached her, cut her bindings, helped her stand. Lieutenant, you good? Yeah, don't let Vyulov escape. Copy that. But the storm was still too thick. The helicopters couldn't pursue. By the time the weather cleared enough, Vyulov was gone. The battle ended in the next hour. Vyulov's forces broke. Some surrendered, most retreated. Casualties were heavy on both sides. 32 SEALs wounded, 8 killed. But 282 men had held against odds that should have destroyed them. Because one woman had stood between them and annihilation. Kira sat in the medical facility again. More injuries, more treatments, but alive. Holloway visited, brought coffee. Hell of a fight, Lieutenant. We lost him. We will find him. International manhunt. Every intelligence agency looking. He can't hide forever. He's been hiding for 25 years. This time is different. This time we have evidence, witnesses, a clear case. Kira didn't answer, just stared at the wall. Holloway set down the coffee. You did good today, saved a lot of lives. Your sister would be proud. My sister's dead because I wasn't there to save her. Your sister's dead because evil exists, but you've spent your whole life making sure that evil pays a price. That counts for something. Maybe. Maybe not. 2 weeks later, Kira was medevaced to Germany, then stateside. Walter Reed Medical Center, surgery on her feet, treatment for frostbite, recovery that was measured in months, not days. Garrett Stone visited, old friend from previous deployments, brought flowers. Heard you had an interesting month, he said. Could say that. 316 confirmed kills, new record. They're putting you in for the Medal of Honor. Don't want it. I know, but you're getting it anyway. They sat in silence, comfortable, the kind of quiet between people who'd both seen too much. Vyulov, Kira finally asked. Still hunting him, got close in Ukraine last week. Missed him by 6 hours, but we're closing in. Keep me updated. Will do. What's next for you? Physical therapy, then back to work. You could retire, medical discharge, full benefits, no one would blame you. Wouldn't be able to live with myself. Stone nodded. Yeah, figured. He left an envelope on her bedside table, for when you're ready. After he left, she opened it. Intelligence report, Vyulov's last known location, associates, safe houses, known patterns. Everything she'd need to finish the hunt. She put it in her drawer, next to Maya's dog tags. Soon. But first she needed to heal, needed to get strong, needed to prepare for the final mission. Because Vyulov was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Not until one of them was dead. And Kira had already decided which one that would be. Justice is patient, but so is vengeance. 4 months later, Kira walked without a limp now. The scars had faded. Physically, she'd recovered. Mentally was a different question. The nightmares came regularly. Maya, Vyulov, the courtyard. The moment when the gun pressed against her forehead and she'd accepted death. But she'd survived. And survival meant obligation. The Medal of Honor ceremony was private. Just her, the president, and a few high-ranking officials. No media, no public recognition. That's how she'd wanted it. The president shook her hand, said words about valor and sacrifice, pinned the medal on her uniform. She felt nothing. Maya's medal sat in a box in her apartment, posthumous silver star. Not enough, never enough. After the ceremony, Stone found her outside. "Got news," he said. "Found him. Better he found us." Stone handed her a classified brief. Vyulov had reached out through back channels, wanted to negotiate surrender, terms, conditions, guarantees. "It's a trap," Kira said. "Probably, but it's also our best shot in 25 years. The brief outlined a meeting, abandoned warehouse district in Eastern Europe, neutral ground, limited security on both sides. International observers, legal framework. Everything by the book. When, Kira asked. 2 weeks, they want you there. Think he'll only surrender to you. Why me? Because you're Maya's sister. Because he respects what you did in Colorado. Because he's dying and wants to die on his terms. He's dying. Cancer stage 4. Doctors give him 6 months. Kira processed this. The man who'd killed her sister was dying anyway. Natural causes, no justice, no accountability. Just time running out. "I'll go," she said. "Thought you might." The next 2 weeks were preparation, tactical briefings, legal frameworks, international law, rules of engagement, everything designed to bring Vyulov in alive legally properly. Everything that went against Kira's instincts. But she'd made a promise to Maya, not revenge, justice. And justice meant trials, evidence, accountability on the record. The warehouse was exactly as described. Neutral ground, international observers from the UN, legal representatives, media kept at a distance but close enough to document. Vyulov arrived with his security detail. Old men, former soldiers, loyal to a dying commander. He looked older than his photographs, thinner, grayer, cancer eating him from inside. But those eyes were the same. They met in the center of the warehouse, observers maintaining distance, everything on camera, everything documented. "Lieutenant Thorne," Vyulov said, "we meet again." "Colonel, I'm told you've been looking for me. 25 years. Persistence, I admire that. You're like your sister. Don't talk about her. Why not? She died well, better than most. There's honor in that. There's nothing honorable about executing prisoners. There's nothing honorable about war. But we do what our nations demand, both of us, soldiers following orders. Maya wasn't following orders when you killed her. She was a prisoner, protected under the Geneva Convention. The Geneva Convention is a luxury for nations that can afford mercy. We couldn't." Kira felt rage building, the kind that 25 years of control had kept buried. "You're here to surrender?" she asked. "I'm here to negotiate terms." "There are no terms. You surrender unconditionally or this ends differently." Vyulov smiled. "Always so absolute, that's youth. When you're my age dying, you understand that everything is negotiable. Not justice. Especially justice." The observers were getting nervous. This wasn't going according to plan. Stone approached, whispered to Kira, "Let him talk, we need this surrender on record." Kira stepped back, Let Vyulov address the room. I am willing to surrender, he said formally, to face trial, to provide testimony about operations spanning 4 decades, but I have conditions. No conditions, the UN observer said. International law doesn't negotiate. Then we have nothing to discuss. Vyulov turned to leave. Wait, Kira said. Everyone looked at her. What do you want? She asked Vyulov. Dignity, a trial where I can defend my actions, a chance to explain that I served my country the same as you serve yours. And when I'm convicted, because we both know I will be, I want to die in my homeland, not some foreign prison. Kira studied him, saw a dying man, saw a monster, saw the complexity that 25 years of hate had simplified. You killed my sister, she said. You killed hundreds, maybe thousands. You don't deserve dignity. No one deserves anything, but I'm offering you something you've wanted your entire life. A confession, on record, every crime, every victim, complete accountability. Isn't that worth more than revenge? The room was silent. Kira thought about Maya, about the woman who'd refused to beg even with a gun to her head, about the example she'd set. Stand tall. Not because it's easy, because it's right. Okay, Kira said. You surrender, you confess, every crime, every detail, and when you're convicted, we'll see about the rest. Vyulov extended his hand. Kira looked at it, the hand that had pulled the trigger, the hand that had killed her sister. She shook it, because that's what justice required. The surrender was formalized, documents signed, Vyulov taken into custody. The trial was set for The Hague, International Criminal Court, full media coverage, complete transparency. Everything, Maya's death had been denied. Stone found Kira outside the warehouse. You did good in there, he said. Doesn't feel good. Justice rarely does, but it's right. He'll die before the trial's over. Cancer will take him first. Maybe, but the world will know what he did. Every victim will be named. That counts for something. Maybe. 3 months later, the trial began. Kira testified, told the story of Maya, of Kosovo, of 25 years spent hunting justice. Vyulov sat in the defendant's chair, listening, sometimes nodding, sometimes closing his eyes. He confessed to everything, held nothing back, every operation, every crime, every victim. The prosecution presented evidence, witnesses, documents, a record so complete that no one could deny what he'd done. The defense argued context, orders, the fog of war. The judges deliberated. And on a cold morning in November, they delivered their verdict. Guilty. On all counts. 247 counts of war crimes, crimes against humanity, violations of every international law that existed. Sentenced to life imprisonment. Vyulov showed no emotion, just nodded, accepted the judgment. Kira sat in the gallery, felt something release in her chest, not satisfaction, not happiness. Closure. 2 weeks later, Vyulov died in his cell. The cancer, just like the doctors had predicted. He was cremated, ashes sent to Russia. No ceremony, no honors, just a war criminal who'd finally faced accountability. Kira visited Maya's grave the day she heard. Arlington National Cemetery, Section 60, where America's recent warriors rested. She knelt not in submission, in respect. It's done, Maya, she said quietly. Vyulov faced justice. Everyone knows what he did. Everyone knows what you did. You stood tall, and now the whole world knows why that mattered. The wind answered, carrying snow, carrying memories. She placed her hand on the cold marble. I have to keep going. There are others like Vyulov out there, others who think they can break people, others who need to learn what you taught me. She stood, saluted, turned. Stone was waiting by the cemetery gates. New assignment, Kira asked. Afghanistan, different team, same war. When do we leave? 48 hours. She nodded, looked back at Maya's grave one last time. Then forward, toward the future, toward the endless fight. Because that's what soldiers did. They fought, they stood, they refused to kneel. Not for glory, not for recognition. For the promise made to the ones who'd fallen. The promise that their sacrifice wouldn't be forgotten, that their example would live on. Maya had shown her how to stand. Now it was Kira's turn to show others. One mission at a time, one mountain at a time, one moment at a time. Until there was no one left who needed her to stand. Until every person who demanded submission learned what Maya had taught. That some people never kneel. Not then, not now, not ever. The snow fell on Arlington, on white headstones, on the memories of warriors who'd stood when standing cost everything. And Kira Thorne walked toward the gates, toward her next mission, toward the endless war that people like her fought so people like Maya weren't forgotten. She touched the dog tags around her neck, Maya's and hers together. "Never kneel," she whispered. And she never would. Because dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And when you've seen someone die with their spine straight and their eyes open, refusing fear even at the end, you carry that with you. You become it. You live it every day. Maya taught Kira that strength isn't about never falling. It's about what you do on your knees. Do you beg? Do you break? Or do you look death in the eyes and say one word that changes everything? Never. Kira chose never. Every day, every mission, every moment when the easy choice was surrender and the right choice was standing tall. The world still had its wars, its Vyulovs, its people who believed that cruelty could break the human spirit. But the world also had its Mayas, its Kiras, its people who proved that some things can't be broken because they were never built to bend. That's the choice we all face. When life puts us on our knees, when the gun presses against our foreheads, when surrender seems like the only option. Do we kneel? Or do we stand? Maya chose standing. Kira chose the same. And somewhere someone else is making that choice right now. Standing when standing costs everything. Because that's how legacies are built. Not with words, with actions, with the quiet refusal to break even when breaking would be easier. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.